Hey, it's Tom from Inspiration Metalworks, and in this week's video, we're going to take a look at two different ways to do a drawing to get to the same part. Now, you might ask, why would you want to do that? I just want to show that there's always more than one way to skin a cat, right? So to speak. In this case, I'm actually doing a partnership with Keith Rucker from Vintage Machinery. So I'm sure most of you know who Keith is. We were talking the other day out at the Summer Bash, and he's got a part that he's made before manually. He made it for himself. He made a few of them. But an awful lot of people have asked about these parts, and he wants to make a larger batch. Nothing terribly complicated about these parts. People could make them on their own if they wanted, but it seems that this type of equipment, I guess people don't always have the equipment available to make this. So looking at the print that I've got, it's a key plug for a safety head. It says the Crescent Machine Company, original tracing lost, part number P24-280. So let's actually, let's take a look at that part. Bring that up real quick. So this is the drawing that I have for it. And Keith wants to make a lot of these, like 100, 150 of these things to make available to viewers for sale, people who want these parts. He doesn't expect he'll sell them all, at least not right away, but it's one of those that it would be nice to have ready to go. So looking at this, you can see basically it's a cylinder with a half 13 thread, right? There is a 30-degree chamfer on here. But otherwise, the only other notable part is this is it's a clamp, right? So you run a bolt through here, and as you tighten it up, it clamps something in place. And it's got this 76-degree cutaway on one side, right? Now, all Keith really wants me to do is just make the cylinder piece, right? So effectively, we've got 7/8 inch round stock. We're going to drill and tap it, and then part it off to size at 3/4 of an inch. I'm also going to put these chamfers on, so I'll face it and put the chamfers on as well. First step for me is to draw it, right? So yes, I have this this PDF of this, but I'm going to be doing this on the CNC lathe, so I need to draw it up real quick. So I did this once already, and I did it. There's more than one way to do this, right? So, and I thought about it as I was drawing it. I was like, this would make for a great, comparison kind of video. So I'm going to draw this twice. We'll do it two different ways, and I'll show you different ways that you can do this and why you might want to do it one way versus another. But it'll show off a little bit of what you can do and how quickly you can do some of these drawings. So I'm going to move this back off to the other side here while I work. Actually, I'll leave it on this window in case I want to bring it back up for you guys. But let's get started. I've got a copy of the print right here in front of me, and let's knock this out. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to create a sketch, and we'll put it on the XY plane. Right? You notice that it highlights as you move your mouse over it. We'll put it on the XY plane, and I'm simply going to draw some circles. Right? So I don't care how big they are yet. We'll come to that later. And I'm going to come in here and put a point in there and put that point in the center. And we'll use that a little bit later. So what are we doing here? Well, really what I'm doing is I want to make sure that I've got a place for the outside of the cylinder, for the inner diameter of the chamfer, and then the center point. So let's start doing some dimensions. I can press D for dimension, or I can use the sketch dimension button here. And I know this inside one, when I look at that, it says that it is 9/16. So I can just type in 9/16. I don't even have to do the math there. Right, there it is, 0.0563. It does it automatically for me. Repeat this process, and I know this one is 7/8, right? So there it is. Now that's the basics of what we're trying to get done, right? From here, I can simply say finish sketch. And I've got a sketch, but I can just come in and say that we're going to do an extrusion, and we're going to do the whole thing for right now. And because I know that there's going to be features that I want to put on here still, I'm going to go down with this. So I can just drag it down the length that I want, or I can type it in. In this case, I know that it needs to be -3/4 of an inch deep. So there's the basics of our cylinder, right? And will that take me 35 seconds, a minute? I'm going to turn the sketch back on. So I'm going to highlight this and turn it back on because I need this for a couple other things. So the next thing I know is I've got a 30-degree chamfer in here. I'm going to zoom in. So I was just using the scroll button, right? I'm going to zoom in, and then I'm going to go to the chamfer tool. And I'm going to select this corner. Now I'm going to do distance and angle. I'm going to tell it that it's a 30-degree chamfer. But then I'm just going to drag it in. Because I don't know the exact distance. I mean, I could do some math, but I've got that line there, right? So I can just keep zooming in and dragging it closer and closer to this line until it gets to about where I think it's good. All right, so there we are. That's on the line now. Here it is. So here's our general shape. You can say OK now. I'll click on OK. The last thing I need to do is put the hole in there for the tapping. Now what's nice about the hole function on in Fusion is when I come in here and I say I'm going to do a single hole, I'm going to select that point. Now I don't know that I'm really on that point. Yeah, actually I'm not. So I zoomed in. Notice I came in here now and I'm snapping to the point. So zoom is your friend. You can see that it put a hole in here. I'm going to say how far do I want it to go, right? So we distance, extents. So how far am I going to do it? I'm going to say all the way through. I have a hole type. Simple hole. Am I going to do counterbores, chamfer, countersinks? This is simple. We are going to tap it. There's no thread offset. It's full threading, and the drill point is 118 degrees. So now I'm going to come in here, and actually this has it already in here for me. But you basically will set the size. So let's say I was going to do 3/8, right? I'd say 3/8. Let's say I wanted to do fine 3/8 24. There it is. I'm going to do. We know this is half 13. So half 13. You notice there's other kinds. The half 20. I do half 20 on a different project that I'm doing. But we're going to half 13, so coarse. And we'll say it's a 3B. Right hand, it is modeled, and I click OK, and there is the model for our part. I can hide the sketch, and now we can see the model for our part. Now I'm going, I can give you a couple of different views. And really the only thing that would be different here on the final one, if we were to look at it from this angle, is there would be a slash through here, right? We would cut that piece out. Now since I'm not doing that part right now, I'm not going to model it, but there it is. There's part one. Pretty straightforward, right? So I'm going to save my work. Now let's look at another way to do this. And we can get really accurate with this as well, and it's not going to take us any more time. So we're going to do this. This time, we're going to do it in the, we'll do it in the Y, or sorry, we'll have Z up on this one. So XZ. And instead of using a circle, I'm just going to draw some lines. And imagine cutting this thing in half, right? Like right down the center axis, the center of the axis. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I know it's going to go out some distance, and then it's going to go up some distance, and then it's going to go over an angle some distance, and then it's going to come in, and then it's going to come straight back down. And you notice now we get the colors have changed a little bit. It tells me that I've got a full solid. We need to dimension this. So first things first. What's this dimension? Well, this dimension is, we said it was 875, right? So 0.875. But because we're going to use the revolve command, we want to cut that in half. So we'll just say 7/8 divided by 2. Really threw that off, huh? Right? It's because this dimension is also in here as well. So now this dimension was at 7/16, right? So this is, and again, if we don't want to do math, we can say 7/16. Is that what it was? 9/16. 9/16. But we're also going to do that divided by 2. Don't know if you can see that. I put it in parentheses, 9/16, and then the whole thing divided by 2. So now there's that part of it. If we come in and we do our height, we know our height was 3/4. Oops. 750. We know, actually we don't know what this height is, right? But what we do know in our dimension, we know that our dimension from here to here is what? This dimension right here is supposed to be 30 degrees. Now, because I've got this dimension and this dimension and this dimension and this dimension has to be in place. Now you notice I've got right angles in here, holding in place, but I don't need to know what this dimension is. In fact, if I try to dimension this now, it's going to tell me that it's over dimensioned. It did the math for me. I didn't have to do any math, right? So at this point, I can finish the sketch, and we'll use the Revolve command. We'll select the profile that we just drew. The axis that we're going to go around is that z-axis, and we're going to tell it to go all the way around. Did I not get the profile? There we go. Okay. And we can say OK, click OK, and there is the basis for our part. Now we still need to do that exact same thing of putting a hole in the center, right? But you notice I don't have anything to really choose from here. I can cheat a little bit. Like I could do the origin and actually turn the origin on, so we've got something to work from, and I could go from the other side if I really wanted to. Put a circle, we're going to say it's a single one. Where are we going to put it? Here. Still think we need, so snap to point. Everything else was already in there from last time. We can just click OK. And that part is done. Just as fast. But now we know precisely to that drawing, we've got the angle there, we've got all our dimensions in place. Let's save our work. And we've just done our second method of drawing the same part. We can look at it a little differently. I can change my visual style to just visible edges only, so you don't see all the other stuff, and I can turn the origin back off. But yeah, really, really simple to do. Simple to create, right? Does not take a whole lot of effort to do a drawing like this when you want to. So let me save this. So let's review. In the first model, I just switched over. The first model, we'll back up a little bit. We drew a sketch with some circles. We made it into a cylinder. We eyeballed the chamfer, although we could have gotten a little more precise. And then we did the hole with the tap, with the threads in there, right? With the Revolve method, we did most of our work in the sketch, right? We did most of that here, our dimensioning, and made sure everything was right on the profile view of it. So looking at it from the side, we revolved that around the center axis, and then we added in that threaded hole. Everything else exactly the same. So, which way would you use? I'd love to hear what you guys think about the different methods. Go ahead and comment below. Next steps for this is we will do the cam operations for this again. Cam on this is really simple, right? Face it, chamfer it, spot, drill, tap, right? Not a lot to it, and then part it off. So, but we'll do that next. I'm just waiting on a collet that I need to run these parts. Everything else is ready to go. I'll make another video of programming the lathe. I may not even do it on the computer. I may just do it right at the control. But we'll program the lathe, and then I've got the bar puller in place, and I will just load up a bar, press a button, collect some parts, do it all over again until I've got 10 feet worth of these done. But with that, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you again real soon.